Welcome to the lesson on memory. And as you can see from this image, we have the traditional image of an elephant, which we symbolically think of as memory. This image, the photograph was taken in a station in Scotland, and it's part of a campaign to attract people to use this advertising space. The idea, of course, is that commuters will see this image hundreds of times and therefore it will be more memorable. So here we're working on the idea of repetition, which is quite a traditional view of memory. Traditional views of memory tell us that the more we repeat something, the more we remember it. This is true. If you drive along the same road every day to go to work, you'll reach the stage where your car almost knows where to go without you driving. So this is a path that has been formed, maybe a neural path in your brain, and repetition, in fact, helps us to remember things. It's a lot of hard work as well. Writing and note-taking begin to help us to process this information. So a lot of students stop here at the repetition stage. They take their notes, they repeat it, and then they go to the exam and they repeat what they've learned. But perhaps an easier way is to write about these things, take notes, to elaborate and process what you're learning as well. And the third step here would be discussion, talking about them with other people too. We've already talked about these, and these are all very useful traditional approaches to memory. But we could add a couple of other things into the equation to help you along the way. Association is perhaps one of the most helpful things. And if you look at the memory worksheet after you've listened to this lecture, then you'll see lots of different ways of working, well, a few different ways of working with association. Association is the idea that if you put things in categories, you remember them better. Simple idea, but it's the way your brain works. This is used in lots of ways. For example, in the theatre, actors use this. They have to memorize incredible amounts of information, the lines for a whole play, and they all have different techniques. One technique is to remember lines associated with the movements that you're doing at a particular time or where you are on stage. A big name in the world of memory and association is Tony Buzan. If you look at the worksheet, you'll be able to find his site where you can look at what he writes about. He's worked a lot with the BBC. Some people hate him, some people love him, but he has explored memory, note-taking, reading, studying, lots of things connected with association. He's best known for his mind maps. So you can have a look at that by looking at the worksheet. Processing or elaborating information in different ways is, I think, really very helpful to your memory. The more you process something, the more time you spend with it. Tony Buzan, in fact, said in his book, Make the Most of Your Mind, that if you have difficulty remembering people's faces or names when you meet them, spend a little time, listen to that person, look at their face, look at something about them that you remember, that you can associate with that particular name. The more you process something, the easier it is to remember. And the last idea that I'd like to introduce here is things that are strange and fun. The stranger you make something, the funnier you make something, the more memorable it will be for you. So if you can associate a strange or funny idea, it may help. Okay, so let's do a little experiment here. Have a look at this list of words. Pause the video at this point, well, after I've given you the instructions. Read it for 1 minute and then write down what you remember. So pause the video here and memorize these words. Use any technique that you usually use. Okay, now you will probably find that you have remembered some things from the beginning of the list and some things from the end of the list. These are the principles of primacy, recency, or the end. We remember things that come at the beginning and at the end. This is true of lessons as well, or reading or studying. So if you're reading a chapter, you'll remember something from the beginning and something from the end, not so much in the middle. You may remember different categories. You may have remembered a lot of animals here, for example. Or you may have remembered things that are unusual, like I just said. Things like bric-a-brac might stand out because it's unusual. So these are just some of the things that we remember. Here it is. We remember things at the beginning and the end the most. Memory works in categories and with association. The more unusual or elaborate something is, the more memorable it is. What this means for our study, and you may wonder why I've got a picture of a coffee break here, is that shorter study periods are probably more useful in this case, because if we have shorter study periods, we have more beginnings and endings. So the principle of primacy, things that you remember at the beginning and the end, increase. So if you have 3 periods of 1.5 hours in a day of study, you will have more information at the beginning and the end of those periods than having one long period of 4.5 hours. Simple process, simple principle, but effective. Also, as we have said before, having a break allows your brain to process information. So you probably take a little bit of time out of your study and you will process it in ways that you don't even realise you're doing. So, what's next? Go to the memory worksheet and work on some of these techniques. Okay, that's it for today.